millions of Americans are on the verge of a potential travel nightmare as the longest government shutdown in U.S. history stretched into day 37. Now, unless this standoff ends, the FAA is planning to slash air traffic across the country, cutting thousands of flights per day. That begins tomorrow. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said flight capacity will be reduced by 10% at 40 major airports. It is not clear which airports would be impacted, though we're expecting a list to come out today. Air traffic controllers are working without pay during this shutdown in incredibly stressful jobs, and staffing shortages have already been snarling flights for weeks now. CNN's aviation correspondent Pete Montine is joining us now. I began this show with my own glitch in my head, and I'm not nearly as stressed out as these air traffic controllers. How bad could this get when you're talking about a 10% reduction in workforce over 40 major airports?
We're talking an impact on tens of millions of travelers here who received emails about this from airlines overnight. This is the most direct consequence, Sarah, of the government shutdown on air travel, and airlines were really blindsided by this announcement. I'm told carriers were given less than an hour's notice that the FAA would move to cut flight capacity nationwide by tomorrow morning. Here is the reasoning from the Trump administration. Air traffic controllers are about to get a second $0 paycheck, and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that stress in the national airspace system is making it unsafe. Here's what's happening. If there is no deal to reopen the federal government by Friday, the FAA will cut airline traffic by 10% at 40 of the country's busiest airports. An FAA source tells me the list includes what are known as the Core 30 airports. Those are the 30 busiest, most operationally significant airports in the United States. FAA Administrator Brian Bedford says the cuts are based on pilot safety reports, not input from the controllers these cuts are supposed to protect. And right now, air traffic controllers, rank and file controllers are telling me there's a lot of confusion about how this will be implemented. In making this announcement, here is what Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said about his rationale.
We're noticing that there's additional pressure that's building in the system. And again, our priority is to make sure that you're safe. And so we're going to talk about additional measures that we are going to take that's going to reduce the risk profile in the national airspace.
You can bet that airlines are reacting to this in a big way. And in a company-wide memo, United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby says these cuts will be significant and significantly disrupt air travel at major hubs, and is warning that passengers should prepare for delays and cancellations starting on Friday. United says it is, quote, actively coordinating schedules and is urging the government to reach a deal immediately. Meanwhile, Frontier Airlines CEO Barry Biffle called the plan unsustainable, saying, quote, you cannot run the national airspace like this. This is not how a modern aviation system functions. He even went as far to say that you should book a backup ticket on a separate airline. That just underscores how unprecedented this move is. The U.S. handles about 45,000 flights on an average day. A 10% cut would mean 4,500 flights removed daily, which is worse than the worst cancellation day of the last year. Every day until the shutdown ends. It's huge. The political reality here is also huge. Never in modern aviation history has U.S. airspace capacity been reduced for the political fight. And the pressure is now on Congress, and the clock is very much ticking toward Friday morning. Sarah.
Yeah, it is very much on Congress, but it is on the administration as well as people become more and more frustrated. We're looking at pictures. I know you've seen them from Houston, where there are insane lines have been in place for a couple of days now. There is a lot to unpack here, but the biggest thing that you said is travelers need to beware. This is going to have a major impact. Pete Montine, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So there have been more than 400 staffing shortages reported at FAA facilities since the start of the shutdown on October 1st. TSA workers are also feeling the strain. CNN spoke with one woman who had to quit her job last week as the pressure of working without pay took its toll.
I tried to push through for as long as I could, but my lease is literally about to end within the next 2 weeks. Landlords require 2 pay stubs. I do not have 2 recent pay stubs. I kind of feel a little bit lost, to be honest with you, because I did intend to continue working as a transportation security officer here in Chicago for as long as I could, but obviously all of this has happened and everything is starting to look drastically different.
Joining me now in the group chat, Zach Wolf, CNN senior politics writer and the author of the What Matters newsletter, Mike Dubke, former Trump White House communications director, and Megan Hayes, former Biden White House director of message planning. I think we're at the point now where no average person cares whose fault it is, and yet they are living with the ramifications of it. So is that finally starting to put pressure on lawmakers to find their way to a deal? I don't know, Mike or Megan, what you're hearing in your group chats.
Well, I'll jump in first on, I think there was a high hope amongst Republicans that this week was finally going to be the week that the Democrats came and voted for the clean CR, and maybe we extend the length of the agreement, but that we would get there. I think there are some within the Democratic Party that are taking the wrong message out of Tuesday, which is, hey, we won in 3 or 4 blue states, big win, so the American people want this to continue. I don't think that's right. And we're also saying, just like classic rock keeps bringing back the oldies but goodies, TSA, the airspace being shut down, that's what ended, as you said at the top of the program, the last shutdown. I think we're starting to feel that this time.
Megan?
I think Mike is right that the American people don't care and they want this solved. And I think that they are just starting to negotiate. You saw some bipartisan negotiations with Don Bacon and Tom Suozzi come out on Monday. And I think that that's what people want to see. And I think that's what they need to see to get it back open. I disagree a little bit that Democrats are riding high from Tuesday saying we don't need to negotiate. I think they understand deeply that people want to get their SNAP benefits and the airports need to function safely. But also the cost of healthcare is important, and those are things that we need to figure out before we open up the government. And Republicans need to negotiate just as well as Democrats do, but the American people deserve to have their government working for them.
Zach, what do you make of how the White House has been dealing with this? Obviously, there is a way out, right? We've seen in the past, you pass something that is clean, so to speak, and then you promise the opposing party a little bite at the apple of the things they want in some sort of separate bill. I don't know what's going on now, but did the visit from the White House to the Hill clarify anything?
I mean, I don't think anything's clarified. We still don't know. We know how this movie is going to end. You described it exactly. Somebody's going to give on something. Somebody else is going to give on something else. There are going to be some votes, and suddenly the government's going to open. Does that mean that the specifics of the Obamacare subsidies are fixed? Probably not immediately, but we'll just have to see. What I don't understand is how the puzzle kind of fits together. That can happen very quickly when people finally decide to do it. But the moving parts are still very much running into each other at this point. So when people start saying there's a deal, I'll get interested, and that might not even equal the end of this. So we'll just have to see.
I think politically, even if you don't have sympathy for federal workers, if you somehow don't have sympathy for people in food lines, it's interesting that when commerce, flights get affected, that's when people start to feel the pressure. I want to play for you the CEO of Frontier Airlines in a statement, or actually read to you in a statement to CNN. He said this: if you are flying Friday or in the next 10 days and need to be there and don't want to be stranded, I highly recommend booking a backup ticket on another carrier. I paused because I went to look at my watch and see the date, if that's going to hit Thanksgiving and my in-laws won't make it. What is it about this moment, or what is it that you think about air travel that pushes politically things to move?
I'm sorry, Audie, now I'm only thinking about whether that's a positive or a negative for you if your in-laws don't make it on Thanksgiving.
I love my in-laws. I'm actually upset.
Okay. Look, I'm going to take exception with the lack of sympathy. I think both parties have sympathy for the cuts, but they're not real in the sense that where you're seeing it across the board affecting across the economic spectrum. So that's why part of the reason I think that this transportation disruption is always kind of one of the things that moves folks forward. But as we see this, I think we're going to get a deal sooner rather than later for the sheer fact that those who are negotiating are very quiet now, and those who are not are very loud and boisterous.
That is my favorite tell among lawmakers. Once they go silent, you finally know something's being done.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.